Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm excited to share a conversation I'm going to have with Pete, who's been traveling some amazing places so far in his life. I know there's many more journeys in him. Everything from being in Rome during COVID. We were just chatting a little bit about that before we started recording. He just was hiking in the Dolomites. So I think everyone will get a lot out of this episode. So welcome, Pete.
Yeah, great to be on the podcast, April.
Thank you. So, what kind of sparked that desire to travel? Was that something that kind of sparked in you when you were young? Did it develop through maybe a job where you were forced to travel? Where do you think that kind of all started for you?
Yeah. Look, ever since I was young, I always remember that I loved looking at atlases and maps. Um, I think one Christmas I remember getting a little puzzle, and it was all the flags of the world. And I can actually go and grab one out of my bag in a minute. I'm here in Verona, actually, I
Oh,
should say,
Verona? Oh my goodness.
in Italy. Yeah, so I just got here this afternoon.
Oh,
Um,
fabulous.
just just been to a new country actually yesterday. Was one of Europe's smallest nations called San Marino. um, a small country just nestled in south of Venice.
Mm-hmm.
So most listeners would kind of have a bit of an idea that Venice is in Italy.
Right.
And yeah, and so San Marino is kind of this very small country, basically just a hill with some a surrounding land and just an old city, fortresses up the top, just really interesting. But anyhow, back to the flags. So there was a puzzle, and you had to kind of match the name of the country with the flag. And it was interesting because just a few years ago, I was in the nation of Georgia with someone, a young couple actually, and they had this little ukulele with a soft cover on it, and they were buying this little, you know, those little pins that you
Yes.
put on your shirts or hats or whatever. And they were buying it to stick into the cover of their ukulele bag. And I thought, and they said, we want to do this like every time we're in a new country, we'll get a little pin to stick on the cover. I thought, oh, that's a cool thing. And it's such a
Right.
small thing to travel with. I thought, oh, I'm going to start doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Or even that gave me a good idea too to have some like I'm from the United States of having the little flag of the United States, and if you meet someone, it's a nice exchange maybe to give
Yeah,
someone too.
true, true. Um, yeah, so yeah, and now I look at these little flags, and I was thinking, really, the love for flags was there even when I was just like a 10-year-old kid, and now I've got about, I don't know, almost 90, I guess, different flags that I've badges that I've collected from different countries. Some
Right.
of them are quite a challenge. I was in Papua New Guinea late last year, and I couldn't find any badges there. But I'll be back, and I met a guy at the airport, and he said, "I have some at home."
Oh,
So, and he said, "Next time you're coming through Papua New Guinea, stop by my store, and I'll have some
oh,
for you." So,
nice. Papua New Guinea, that's a place that not everyone that's gets to go to. What did you
yeah.
tell us a little bit about that? I mean, what an interesting, fascinating place.
Okay, so I should just fill in the listeners that I'm Australian, and currently based in Europe. So I'm living with my German wife in Germany. Um, so, but around about twice a year, I get to go back to Australia and connect with family. I have children there and grandchildren.
Oh my
I've got
goodness.
four grandchildren already. So that's always fun. And so I had some friends in Fiji and the Solomon Islands, Pacific Islands.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, they've been asking me to visit for a few years now. And so I thought, okay, I'll make it happen. And so I took one of my sons, Nathan, with me, and I thought, let's do a kind of explore the Pacific Islands. So we started in Fiji, went to um, Solomon Islands with a short transit through Vanuatu, which was a fun little stop. Solomon Islands is an amazing place. But then we ended up in Papua New Guinea, and that was amazing as well. So I never left the capital city on this trip, but connected up with some people, friends of friends,
Oh,
and
wow.
and my dad had been to Papua New Guinea, and my grandfather
Oh my
had
goodness.
served in New Guinea as part of in the Australian Army or Air Force. He was
Mm-hmm.
with. So there's kind of like a bit of a history there. My uncle also worked in Papua New Guinea and married a um, local Papua New Guinea lady.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so there was a bit of family history, and so I found it interesting
Yes.
going after all these years. My brother had been there as well. So yeah, it was fascinating. And so I went to the capital, which was Port Moresby, and they were having different riots there and
Yeah.
stuff at the time. It can be a dangerous place, so you kind of do have to watch over your back. Yeah, so and I remember like one night we're in the taxi, and the taxi driver fuels up the car or something, hops back in, and he's carrying this like great big knife
Right.
that he puts down next to his door. And I said, wow, that's for protection. And he kind of nods and says, yeah. And then he pulls down his sun visor and says, oh, I also have this one. And it's kind of a shorter kind of dagger.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was, it was a bit of a wild trip, but we survived. And um, I think after a while, you kind of develop a kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, a sixth sense of safety.
I think
um,
that's true. I think, yeah, you kind of start to, and even for those of us living in the United States, unfortunately, the news is full of, situations and things that happen. And you do start to feel like you have eyes around your head and try to keep your senses about you, is what I say. Because if you get that feeling in your gut, like, you know what, maybe I don't want to walk that way back to the hotel. Maybe I'll take the
yeah,
longer route. Go with your gut, I always say.
yes, yes, so true. I visited, believe it or not, I visited the US for the very first time this year.
Oh, this was the
So
first time? Wow.
the first time. So after 35, I think it's like 35 years of travel, and uh, I had kind of just put it
Yeah,
on
it's
the too
fine.
hard list,
Right,
because
yes.
if you've been to countries like Iran or Iraq, then I always heard that, oh, you have to wait for so many years. And anyhow, so I kind of bit the bullet, we say in Australia, and applied for a US visa. And it wasn't as hard as I was expecting. So I've got like a 5 year
Oh, wow.
come and go visa now for the US. But so it was my first trip, and it was basically a catch up with friends trip. And but I had some real fun times. And funny, we're talking about safety
Right, right.
before. And because I'm a lover of all of these crime shows
Oh
on
no.
TV, NCIS, and all of the rest of the ones, you guys just create all of these crime shows. And so you kind of do expect the US has kind of got someone's about to murder you around every corner.
Right.
And it was actually, I didn't have that experience at all. Like, even in New York,
Oh,
okay,
good.
people
Okay,
were
well, that's
doing
good to
drug,
hear. Yeah, that's good
there
to
were
hear.
people doing drug deals and stuff in McDonald's. And when I was just in there after a coffee or something in the morning. But uh, look, and there was like a few creepy subway rides where I was in Philadelphia, and look, that was an eye opener for me. Like, just um, I reckon that this was like back in February, and I said to my wife, pretty much 10% of the people on the main street of Philadelphia were just wiped out on drugs.
Oh
And I
no.
and then I was watching a clip from YouTube and looking at I think it's at Kensington or something, one of the worst areas of town, and it was just like a zombie movie.
Oh,
And I
weird.
was so Uh, it would, funny enough, like, it would be one city that I'd actually return to, and I'd want to get involved in some kind of soup kitchen or something to help out, because I don't know, there's something that attracts me to needy people. And yeah, if I can help out there, that would be something that I'd love to plan for my next trip. But yeah, loved US, and it was not so as dangerous. I mean, I did visit a friend in St. Louis, and driving through town with him, it was sad. Like, he was basically, this is where my dad got shot and died.
Oh
This
my
is where my
goodness.
cousin got shot and died. And it was like every street corner he had some story about
That's
a
terrible.
near
Oh
miss.
no.
Yeah, so St. Louis, like, if you're visiting there as a tourist, kind of, yeah, watch which street you go down. but
Yeah,
um,
unfortunately, yeah, that's too bad to hear that. Yeah.
but there was a lot of places I felt completely safe, and yeah, loved the Grand Canyon. Um, Americans are so good at advertising and marketing. And I got to the Grand Canyon, and I thought, whoa, this is actually one place that's actually bigger and better than the marketing.
Oh, well, that's good. I was just gonna say, I hope so.
It was so much bigger and impressive. Um, and yeah, then I realized after I'd gone that I must have only seen such a small part. So I want to go back definitely, and I only saw the South Rim. I'll go back and do the North Rim next visit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Good, good.
But
Well,
had a fun trip.
let's shift gears and hear about some of your favorite places you've been to in the world.
Okay, yeah. So the Grand Canyon. I mean, that's right up there.
Oh,
That's one of
really?
that was such an impressive experience for me, and the whole of Arizona was just that whole deserts thing, and with cactus, and just driving through toward the or back from the seeing the Grand Canyon, and there was like a herd of elk
Yeah.
walking through the forest. And yeah, just amazing. So that was an impressive place. um I always enjoyed my visits to the nation of Georgia. So
Hmm.
not the state of Georgia, but
Right.
the nation
Country.
of
Yeah.
Georgia. Um, that was really nice. Just strangers on the street, like just very genuine interactions with locals that would just take you home and cook you a meal with their
Really?
family. And just very genuine and didn't want any money, just hospitality. Um, and I kind of had that same experience as well in Iran and places like not Kazakhstan, but what am I thinking of? North Iraq.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, that Middle Eastern hospitality is
Huh.
just amazing. Like Turkey's a little bit like that as well. Just all of these places there in the Middle East, um, uh, just super hospitable, and I think the first or second trip I went to Iran, I did couch surfing, which you've probably heard of, where people open up their house and you can sleep on their couch. And I had some really fun, yeah, fun encounters meeting locals like that. And yeah, just earlier this year, I visited one of those people who'd migrated to Canada.
Oh,
So he
interesting. Right.
Montreal, that's right. Yeah, so I caught up with him, and yeah, it was great to actually meet him in Iran and see how he was doing now. He had married
Oh,
and
wow.
had moved to yeah,
So couch
Iran.
surfing and those communities, where are you finding those now, or that's kind of something you did at the beginning of your travels, so to speak?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I've done it a few times. Uh, yeah, I mean, it kind of two, 2011, I think, 2012, 2013, that kind of um, season in my life. I was, yeah, doing a bit of couch surfing and kind of really enjoying it. I haven't done much lately. And I mean, now that we've kind of brought up the topic, I'm kind
Yeah.
of thinking maybe I should do it more.
Well,
Um,
I do see on Facebook, and I know not everyone out there, but a lot of the listeners are on Facebook. There are groups called, for women, I know there's one called Host a Sister, and I'm sure there's similar
yeah,
groups where individuals do that live all around the world just say, "Hey, I live X and I have an extra bedroom and like you said, a couch
yeah,
and I'll be in this town from, would you like to be my guest?" And I guess through that Facebook and hopefully some vetting, people feel comfortable still doing that and have some wonderful experiences.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, maybe maybe the reason why I'm not using the actual couch surfing website much these days is that I've just met people um, just in various experiences. Like I'm going to catch up with some friends in Argentina
Oh, wow.
in September, and I met them on a safari that I did in Kenya. Um, I visited 10 different states in the US and stayed mostly with people that I'd met um, in all different places. Like, I'm just trying to think. Two of them I met in India and Nepal. One of them I'd met online, and in person we went to Iraq together, and also helping out doing some humanitarian projects in the Ukraine.
Oh,
He did a
nice.
trip with me. And then I stayed at his house in New Hampshire, if I pronounced that
Yeah,
correctly.
you did.
I did, okay. Um, Who else was there? I met a guy in uh, what did I say, Philadelphia, who I had met in person on walking the Camino in to Santiago de Compostela in Spain.
Oh,
Um,
wonderful.
so yeah, caught up with him. I caught up with one guy that I just met on Facebook in a photography group, and he said, "Hey, Peter, if you're ever in the US, we've got places for you to stay, and we're snowbirds, my wife and I. So depending on the time of year, we'll either have we'll be either in Pennsylvania or Florida." So I ended up staying at their place in Florida.
Oh,
So
nice. This is
yeah,
wonderful, though, just the power of meeting people through travel by putting yourself
for
out
sure.
there. So it sounds like you do a lot of solo traveling.
Yeah, so I'm with my wife right now. So this is kind of like summer holidays here in Europe as well as like the
Yes.
US. So we're able to have a little bit more time together traveling. And a lot of my first, yeah, right up until like 2010, like in a previous, it feels like a previous life. So,
Yeah.
um, a lot of my trips were volunteer projects, like with humanitarian projects in India and places like that. And being in Australia, like everywhere, like outside of Asia, felt so far away. So most of my travel was just focused on a few nations like Malaysia, Singapore, India, and Nepal. And then it was 2010. Unfortunately, I went through a separation and divorce. So that was kind of like the big, um, sometimes we need like a life crisis kind of,
Yes. Yeah.
which we really shift gears. And so right around that time, 2010, I'm just trying to think of her name. There was a movie that just came out following on from her book, um,
There've been a couple
Eat, Pray,
movies.
and Love.
Yeah, Eat, Pray, Love, and the movie starred Julia Roberts, which is a popular
Yes.
American actress. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had two different lady friends that suggested I go and watch this movie. So I get into the cinema, and there's only about 6 or 8 people in the cinema, but I look around and they're all women. And I'm
Right.
thinking, oh, great, this is
Yeah,
a chick flick.
right.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm here now. And I was, yeah, totally stunned after that movie, just because one of the places that she goes is India, which was
Right.
kind of my go-to places. I've been there over 10 times.
Oh, wow.
More. Yeah, yeah, I don't know exact number of trips that I've done to India, but quite a few. I lived there for 6 months when I was younger, and so that she went to India, and it kind of just sowed the thought in me, well, yeah, maybe I should do a bit of travel. And I always was felt happy and when I was in India. And then I thought, okay, let me go to India for a month. And then the idea became, why don't I just visit my friends all around the world?
Yeah.
So I basically called a friend whose name was Troy. And I knew that Troy, we'd had a conversation about travel, and he had said, I want to go back to Europe and explore some more. And so I phoned him and said, look, I'm thinking of a trip, um, uh, doing a bit of a travel. And I know that you have a lot of friends in Europe. and I have friends all through Asia. Why don't we join team and stay with my friends in Asia and your friends in
Yeah.
Europe, if it could work out. And so the plan was hatched, and he said, "What date were you thinking?" And I said, "Well, September the 30th." And uh, and he said, "My boss called me into the office like literally 2 days ago, and said, 'Look, your work contract finishes September 30th.'"
Oh my
And
goodness.
and
Wow.
he said, "Look, we love you, and we'll just create more work for you. Like, don't worry about the contract. We'll just wait for the next government funding." And my friend Troy said, "Look, thanks. I've really enjoyed working here, but I've got a feeling I want to do some travel
Yeah.
um, then." And then I call him 2 days later with this crazy idea. So, so
Wow.
we head off on this adventure, and I don't know how many countries we went through, about 14 in four
Wow.
months. So
That's
about a
incredible.
country each week. But yeah, went had some amazing adventures. Um, uh, some of them were. I'm writing a travel memoir at the moment, and so some of the adventures from that trip will definitely end up
Oh, I
in the
love
book.
that. Yeah. I can see where a lot of those could end up in the book for people to reference. But you touched on something, which I want to hop back to for a minute, is volunteer travel. How did that work? Because I know there's a lot of places for travelers if they're interested in combining their love of helping people and travel to do volunteer
Yeah.
travel. Do they give you places to stay? Are there organizations or websites that you found had good opportunities? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so these were usually just through private contacts. I might have been local churches or different
Okay.
people in other countries. Um, I think it was 1994, I think, or 1993. I spent 3 months in Thailand teaching English.
Oh, wow.
Um, and that was basically they provided accommodation for us. So my first wife was with me.
Hmm.
She was 3 months pregnant at the
Oh, wow.
time as well. So that was a fun experience for us both. And Yeah, it just was an opportunity to that we felt that we could contribute and enjoyed both of it, and both of us enjoyed the experience,
Yeah.
and yeah, and just be a little bit more immersed into their culture because it was a place called Konken, which is kind of like I don't think too many tourists would go there even now. So it's a little bit off the tourist map and kind of, I don't think we ever met or saw any tourists while we were there. So you're kind of, yeah, right into,
The culture, though, you're really immersed then
yeah,
in experiencing just the day to day of that place,
yeah,
learning to, you're eating the foods or learning how to cook maybe the things that are available to you. I think it's kind of a
yes.
fabulous experience.
Yeah, and that's typically that is kind of my, can I call it travel genre?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of
Is-
your, I guess it's your style, like we all,
Yeah, that's
it's,
why we were talking before the podcast about my trip to Rome,
yeah,
like just after the first COVID lockdown, and like we didn't really know much about COVID back
yeah,
in those early days. So I wanted to do some a little bit of risk assessment. So I messaged a few Italian friends and I said, look, what do you think? Is this a silly idea? I noticed there's flights coming from Munich directly to Rome. and they said, yeah, look, the first wave hit Milan up in the north quite hard. I think there was about 30,000 people that
Oh, wow.
were hospitalized. A lot of them died. But one of my friends lived in Rome, and he said, at the moment, it's very calm here. We're all wearing kind of masks and things, doing whatever we can. But I think you'll be pretty safe. And I thought, yeah, look, before the holidays start or anything, there's not going to be too many people around at all. And so maybe there's a little window of opportunity. And yeah, so the flight was fine. There was empty seats everywhere, so not many people traveling. Airport was completely empty,
Yeah.
and got to the Rome, and literally I was standing in the middle of a 4-lane highway at one stage, just snapping photos with
Wow.
absolutely no cars. So,
Those pictures are invaluable. It's going to be, I think, a long time before, unless somebody
yeah,
pays to clear the streets where you're going to get images like that. I mean,
I know.
amazing.
A crazy, just crazy experiences, and lining up, well, not even lining, going to the Vatican Museum, and there's no one, not even any tourists there. And I walked up to the handle and pulled it, just seeing is this place opened or not, and
Yeah.
then seeing the security guard inside and asking, is it opened? And him nodding and pointing to a desk. Went over to the desk and asked the lady, is it opened? And she said, yeah. How many tickets do you want? Kind of thing. Just doing a regular job, and yeah, so I got a ticket, and some of those Vatican rooms in the Vatican Museum I had completely to myself,
Wow.
which was a experience that you'd probably only get if you're on a celebrity.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. Right. Have special
yeah, because I
clearance.
think celebrities can actually get special
Yeah.
tours where they can be alone in rooms and things like that. So I basically got the celebrity version of the Vatican tour.
Yeah.
So probably Oprah and I have something in common
Well, and
if
I
she's
like, yeah,
been to
and
the.
I also like how you touched on that whole idea of risk assessment because as
Yeah,
COVID was happening, even stateside, I was saying too, I think it comes down to, yes, there were places that are completely closed, but if there's no one standing at the border to check your, even state to state, I mean, assess your personal, it comes down to your personal comfort level. I mean,
yeah,
you mentioned countries like Iran and Iraq that many Americans, we hear those words and we're like, oh my gosh, I will never ever go there. But
yeah,
if you do your research, maybe do some due diligence and search your own soul, like how do I feel
yes,
about this? I think we will find that there are places that we will feel safe. It's just sometimes getting over that initial like, you know, going with your gut and maybe listen to yourself. I mean, because there's always going to be someone that's going to not feel comfortable, even traveling, as you mentioned, in Philadelphia. They'll be like, no, no way, I'm never going to go to Detroit, Michigan, or Philadelphia, or wherever place that is. An island with a volcano that may or may not erupt. So it really comes
yeah,
down to doing your homework
yeah,
and deciding for yourself and then being brave enough to just say, you know what? I only live once. If I want to go see X, I got to do that?
yeah. I mean, sometimes you're in places that, like, like when I've been in, I don't know, like um, Kherson in Ukraine. I mean, you're hearing like rockets, missiles 24 hours a day.
Oh my
And
goodness.
some of those got very close to us. Um, and because like, this is a first time experience, it all feels very surreal. Like, you don't really have any kind of uh, yeah, frame of reference for it.
Right,
But
right.
you hear like a rocket or a missile, and then the you see like the locals hitting the ground, and then you're the only one kind of standing, and you're thinking, well, the locals know, right? And then you'll kind of crouch or lie on the ground or whatever and follow their example. But that's because the locals, like, they've lost friends and family. But for them, it was a real experience, and they got used to knowing which rockets were headed their way. And
Huh.
yeah, they just get to know this. And I don't know. Some of obviously situations like that can the risk is a lot higher.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, other times, like, the risk is a lot of it might be imagined, like Iran, for example. Unless if you're going to do something stupid, uh, then
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what can I
Right.
say? But if you're just there doing the right thing and not going out of your way to,
Yeah.
I don't know, steal a flag or do something crazy like that,
Right.
um, yeah, which people do.
I
People are
know.
out there and they do the silliest things and then end up in jail. And you think, like in Germany, anyhow, I shouldn't tell any
Yeah, I was gonna say,
negative stories.
yeah, no, let's not frighten people. But you recently were
Yeah.
saying, I know pre-interview you were saying one of your favorite places to go was the Dolomites.
Oh,
So
yes.
tell us about the Dolomites. Tell us where kind of they are, because for some
Yeah.
of the listeners, places aren't as easily to find, so we don't have to Google right now. So
Yeah.
share about the Dolomites and how to experience those places.
Okay. Yeah. So one of my very favorite places is the Dolomites. It's part of the, I guess, the European Alps. So it's like you can follow, I don't know what it is, it the middle of Europe? I don't know, but there's a mountain range that you can probably track all the way from the Pyrenees
Mhm.
in the east of Spain, that cross and right through the bottom of France there, and then Switzerland. So most people associate mountains with Switzerland,
Yeah.
and also Austria. And then so just south of, joined onto those mountain range in Switzerland and Austria there, nestled just south of it, is the Dolomites. And it's amazing. Like, I don't know, just we were just there last week, and um, just on the side of the road there was a little baby deer
Oh,
we
wow.
stopped to look at. Um, I don't know. We saw little foxes. Wildlife is amazing. There's these little creatures called marmots
Mhm.
that I think in America, I think you guys have something similar.
Yeah, we do up in the Rocky Mountains, these marmots.
Okay, yeah. So they burrow in the ground.
Yeah.
We don't have anything like that in Australia. So it was. I mean, we have other animals in Australia like koalas and
Right.
kangaroos. But yeah, love the marmots, and yeah, just love watching them and photographing them. I'm a big wildlife photographer as well, so I love visiting countries where they have some interesting wildlife. I think I mentioned that I'd been on a safari in Kenya, and uh, yeah, a few months ago was in Costa Rica,
Oh, wow.
and uh, just
The
one of
wildlife
my
there, yeah.
yeah, it was always a dream to photograph a toucan in the wild, and I got to photograph a few.
Oh, good.
Uh, yes, which was amazing. I think I saw three different types and photographed them.
Wow.
And the I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but the quetzal, I think it is. It's kind of like a rare bird that lives in the rainforests of the cloud forests in Costa Rica. I got to see that and photograph that. Um, so I can even send you a photograph you
Yeah,
can
that would be
put on
fabulous.
the website. But yeah, just different experiences like that have been fun.
So when
Down
you
at
go
Cape
to the
Town.
when you go to the Dolomites, are there little villages to stay in? Do people tend to
Uh-huh.
hike it or bicycling?
Yeah. Yeah, so lots, it's a big place for hiking. It kind of caters for everyone though.
Oh,
Like
okay.
on this last trip, we didn't do so many big long hikes, but if you're a hardened hiker and you want to just do a 20-kilometer hike, yeah, there's definitely lots and lots of hiking tracks. Like you'll never get bored. Um, and for all different levels too. So there's extreme uh, 45-degree angle hikes if you're really keen. But also like there's a lot of in the winter they have skiing. So there's like the what do you call the uh,
Like the
like the
show,
ski lifts, chair
the
lifts, and
chairlifts, right? Okay.
yeah, gondolas or whatever you call them, to get you from the up to the top of the plateaus.
Right.
And usually up there, there's restaurants, and say even if you don't want too much strenuous activity that day, you can just ride one of those chairlift things up to the top. Like we were in one area this year called Passau, or Passo, um, is just the name of Italian word for pass
Oh,
or
okay.
road. Padoi, Passo Padoi, we were. And there you have like this gondola or chairlift thing to lift you up to the top. And they have a lovely restaurant there, and then you can just kind of follow some smaller little trails just to look around and observe the beautiful panorama. So
Oh,
you've got
wow.
like almost 360 views of mountains,
Oh my
right? And you'll
goodness.
see mountains in the distance of um, certainly Austria, and then all the, yeah, just
Oh,
fantastic views.
wow, it sounds fabulous. So you're
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your book project because I know you've got a book you're working on.
Yeah, so my first book was kind of like I'll call it a therapy project, um, because in 2010, um, I had a lot of grief. Like it was kind of most people have like let's say 4 to 5, 6 life crises, um, and I had all of mine in one 6 month period. So
Wow.
my mum passed away. My dad had, I think it was a third of his lung cut away with cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Um, he was in remission for a while and then passed away about 5 years later. But it's like all of the extra stress. A
Oh
business
yeah.
deal went really sour and left me in a heap of debt. And then my marriage, yeah, crumbled. So there was a lot of kind of grief that I was processing. So I ended up writing a novel called Hunting Season, um, which did really well. And I got a lot of great reviews. I've written a second follow up to that. So it was always gonna be like a trilogy,
Okay.
and but it's sitting on my hard drive. But in the meantime, I'm working on this travel memoir, and I thought, well, since I had plans to, uh, I'll visit my 100th country
Oh,
in
wow.
September, which will be probably Argentina. I'm still looking at the itinerary, but probably Argentina is the plans. And I just thought now seems to be a good time to write a travel memoir, sharing the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's been some bizarre experiences. I mean, we got arrested on the border of Kazakhstan and Russia.
Oh,
Um, Not really our fault. It was just whoever the it was a mistake in the visa process, where we tried to tell the people issuing the visa that we were going to be in a train 2 days across Kazakhstan before we entered into Russia.
right.
So we needed a visa that was going to, yeah,
Yeah,
cover
cover
the whole
that.
train
Right.
journey.
Right.
And the guy in the visa office, I won't mention which office it was in case he's listening, but
Yeah, exactly.
um, he said, no, no, that's not how we do it here. We just will give you a visa that is to the date on your train ticket, which would be how you would normally do it on a plane ticket. And so he, I think, assumed this is what we do with we just do the date on the ticket that you're exiting. So of course we're getting to the Russian border. Our visa expired 2 days ago, like
Right.
when we
Oh,
hopped on the
yeah.
train. So we got pulled off the train, and the rest is history. You can read about it
I
in
was
my
gonna
book.
say it's gonna be in the book, so
Yeah, so I won't give any spoilers away, but we got through that situation, and it was interesting because the next train that we took uh, got us out of the country and through to Moscow. And there was a lady on that train that after a bit of chatting, she said, I'm an author. And she said, I've enjoyed your story so much. I think I'm going to write you as a character in my next romance novel.
oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
I'm probably in a Russian romance novel somewhere.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So if there's any Russians listening to this and you've read a story about an Australian in
On a train, right, in Russia.
could have been me. Could have been me.
Right, exactly. So, all these travels, were you keeping journals or things that you're gonna have to refer back to, or a lot of the content of the book, let's say, is stored up here and it just is recalled through your photos or other means?
Yeah, a lot of it has just been recorded through photos because I'm a very visual person. I love photography. But interesting you say this. As I've started to write this memoir, I've been more making notes as I travel now, thinking, well, if there's a kind of a sequel travel memoir when I get to 200 countries, then at least I'll have some written notes to accompany some of my
Yeah.
photos capture some of those stories. I found it a little bit, the most challenging part about writing this book was that um, after a while, things seem kind of so normal
Right.
to you the more travel you do.
Right.
Um, and I wanted to uh, kind of wanted to make it relatable and interesting for people that have not done much travel overseas.
Right.
Um, and so, like, for example, in India, like you can stand on a street corner and like one side of the street, there's a wooden wagon that's being towed by two ox, and it's just loaded up and it's stuck on a power lead that's
Yes.
going across a road. And then the other side of the street, there's some guy cooking, I don't know, it could be rats or something
Right.
in
Yeah.
this little barbecue. And after a while, as as crazy as that sounds, after a while, it kind of becomes kind of normal. We almost don't notice it after a while. And yeah, it kind of becomes this, part of my world. I want to, and I'm just having to remind myself of the sights and the sounds, what really impacted me
Yes.
on those first few trips, just to bring it into the reader's
Yes,
world.
exactly. Right.
Yeah,
And
what these countries are like, from a first time. Yeah, if they went for the first time, what would they notice?
right, exactly.
Yeah,
Or vice versa, what to look for because I think there's a good and a little bit of a negative because years ago, pre-Instagram, pre-social media, we'd see a few pictures, if you were lucky enough to have access to magazines like in the 60s, maybe late 50s. I don't know when National Geographic started. I think for a lot of people that
yeah,
was their first introduction into travel photos from faraway places. But now it's like you open Instagram and you just see all these photos for where you're going. And I think for me a little bit, I almost try, it's a balance. I don't want to see too much because then I know when I get there, it might not seem as exciting and fresh and
yeah.
new because it almost feels like, haven't I been here before? Because you've seen so many photos.
Yes, yes, true, true, true. I think just we've just come from San Marino, a
Yeah.
tiny little country here and nestled in the middle of Italy. And I really didn't know much about it. I didn't really reference it at all. Um, and it was a pleasant surprise. I just loved everything about it. My wife was continually raving about how much she enjoyed it,
Oh,
and
good.
she really loves history too. So she just was non-stop has been narrating me history from what she's been reading on Wikipedia and other different
Yeah.
sources. Um, but yeah, it was a surprise. And that little town we just visited recently, um, oh, I'd have to look up what the name of it is. Oh,
Oh, in the
it's
Dolomites?
near Lake Gardia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were
Um,
mentioning that.
Lake Lake Garda, here in Italy. There's a little peninsula that's jutted out,
Oh,
and there's a little tiny town called Sermiona.
oh,
I
wow.
don't know if I pronounced that right. But yeah, we got there. I just liked the geography that I saw this peninsula jutting out into the lake and just thought, well, you're surrounded by water. Like it's got to be interesting.
Right.
And got there, and then there's this big castle and just a really nice atmosphere.
It's nice
Yeah.
to be surprised, especially for you, I'm sure, when you've gone so many places now to find these little gems that you didn't over, as I call it, we didn't over research. You just went with the flow,
Yeah.
and maybe for whatever reason, a friend or you decided, you know what, let's go down that road today. That looks interesting. So I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it happens to me so often, like just yeah, when I'm visiting a new place and I'm kind of thinking like, look, I've seen kind of all of the extremes from Dubai's big
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar towers and then the city slums of I don't know, Papua
Yeah.
New Guinea or India. Um, and you kind of think like, yeah, will I be, what's this new country going to be like? And yeah, just there's always something interesting to surprise you, like America.
Right.
Yeah, I
Well,
went to
that's
the
good.
US and just, yeah,
Well,
just
that's
loved every bit
good.
of it. Lots of
Wonderful.
history. I stood on the ship where the Boston Tea Party was and got to experience that history. And I left the US um, with a fresh appreciation of why Americans love their liberty, like the word liberty. I kind of know what it means now to and it's interesting that San Marino has the same motto, like liberty. And
Interesting.
they
Yeah.
were a tiny little country that had been lots of people wanted it, but they managed to keep their independence for all these years.
Well, that's a great place to end. Your love for all the new places you've explored. How can people find you? Share us where your website is and where the book will be when it
Mm-hmm.
launches. So if people are excited to follow you, and if you have a place where you post photos, share that.
Yep, cool. Yeah, you can find me on the website petersewell.com. I need to update it, but and as I'm getting ready to launch the book, I'm sure there'll be a bit of an update on my website. Instagram, I sometimes post photos there, so you can find me at Smiley Pete
Oh, nice.
01. So yeah, that's on my Instagram. Post a few photos there, and yeah, if you want to email me, message me on the website, and I'll keep in touch and with all of the updates of the book launch coming up.
Exciting. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much today for your time, Pete. And hopefully we'll cross paths again. And I may have you come back on once the book is up and running so we can share some of the tidbits from the book. I'll be excited to keep up with you.
Hey, sounds fun. April, I've really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you.